Working on board cruise ships is a job unlike any other. It's often compared to other occupations within the hospitality sector like the hotel industry, and while there are of course a lot of similarities, cruise jobs are without a doubt in a class of its own. This is primarily due to you living where you work and constantly traveling to some of the most beautiful places in the world. Hey, what's going on everybody? My name is Jay. So as somebody that has worked on board cruise ships, I can personally tell you that life on board is an extremely taboo environment. And while on board, things can get a little crazy and weird at times. On this channel, I like to talk about some of those things. Today, I want to talk about my cruise ship Stalker. So before we dive into the story, real quick, I want to give you an idea as to what life is like on board, just to kind of put things into perspective. However, keep in mind, depending on who you ask as far as cruise ship workers, you're going to hear a lot of different things. But in my personal opinion, working on board cruise ships is a combination of high school, college, military, and jail, kind of all rolled into one. However, I wouldn't know too much about the jail side. But either way, on board you got the popular kids, you got classes to take, you got bedtimes, you got parties and people experimenting on board, you got contraband and prohibited items. The list goes on and on. You get my point here. There's a lot of things happening when you're working on board cruise ships. So the story begins when I arrived to the cruise ship for the first time and officially started my contract. I was set to do a 6-month contract with NCL on board the NCL Escape, and I was extremely excited because whether you're a guest or a crew member, no matter what, that initial first day is always going to be exciting. However, I was soon met with boredom because your first week or two when you get on board the cruise ship to start your contract, there are a lot of safety trainings and drills that you have to do, and it gets extremely repetitive and there really isn't a lot of fun in it. But unfortunately, it's unavoidable no matter how many contracts you've done. So here's the deal, full transparency, I'm a class clown. I can't help it, it's who I am, and you should never change who you are for anybody. I've been this way for as long as I can remember. Now when we were in these classes, these videos were so outdated, they had to at least come from the 80s or 90s. And they were talking about things like how to properly pick up a box, telling you not to drop the load. And they were also talking about places that people will put their contraband in order to sneak it on board the ship. I could not help myself, I had to crack a joke or two. However, little did I know, I was about to gain some unwanted attention. So throughout the first couple days on board the cruise ship during class, I had everyone exploding in laughter. Now to be clear here, it probably wasn't because I was actually funny. You gotta look at it this way, just to paint the picture, on board my ship specifically, we had about 70 different nationalities on board. And within that class, we had about 30 people. I was 1 out of 3 Americans. So technically, a lot of these people ain't never seen nothing like this before. I was literally that stereotypical American that never shut up. So to them, it was like watching a movie with Eddie Murphy or Chris Tucker. You get the idea. I'm not as funny as them, but either way, they do say that laughter is the way to a woman's heart, right? Or to anybody's heart for that matter. So there was this girl that would not stop staring at me. She was from Indonesia. I kind of ignored it at first. Now, within this specific class that I was in, everybody there was new, and for a lot of them, it was their first time on board the ship. So after class, we'd all get acquainted, laugh, talk, introduce ourselves to each other, and this girl would come up every now and then. She seemed a little shy at first, and she had very little to say, but she made sure she introduced herself to me. Now, chances are, some of you out there are probably wondering and asking the question, out of everybody on board this cruise ship, why is this woman taking an interest in me? Because regardless of the culture difference, I could tell. Well, let's go ahead and nip this in the bud right now. Look at this beautiful chocolate face, alright? Case closed. Also, full transparency here, back in the day, I was a little bit of an unintentional flirt. Now, did I flirt with this girl initially? No, at least I don't think I did. I was in that young phase. I was about 25, 26, and for those of you that are older, I'm sure you remember that little weird crossover phase where you stop thinking about parties and start wondering about your purpose in life. That was me. On top of that, I had my girlfriend. And by the way, I need to give this girl a name. I'm not going to use her actual name for obvious reasons. Let's go ahead and call her Bella. Alright, so anyway, class went on for about 2 weeks. I had to tone it down after a while because I got in a little bit of trouble with the officers. I'm pretty sure I was about to get fired and they were going to have to call in a helicopter to emergency evacuate me off the ship. It was that bad. But anyway, after class was done, we went on with our normal lives and we're starting to be able to just roam about the ship however we saw fit. Next thing I know, this girl is wherever I was. She was at the gym, she was at the crew bar, she was at the buffets. It was insane. So if you've been on a large cruise ship, you probably know that it is kind of like a small city. You know what? Scratch that. More like the world condensed down because you have so many different nationalities on board. So is it possible that it's just a small coincidence that I keep running into this girl in places like the gym? Well, yes and no. Here's the thing, I'm not trying to body shame anybody, but this girl wasn't the athletic or physical fitness type. Again, I'm not trying to body shame, but the truth is everybody has their personal taste and preference, and it was clear this girl had never really gone to the gym, and she wasn't interested in the fact. Whenever she would go there, she would literally go there for about 5 minutes, try to lift a couple weights, and she would look at me, come say hi, try to engage in conversation, and then from there she would disappear when she saw the conversation dying down a little bit. But eventually things started getting a little bit more weird. So on board the ship, there is a restaurant known as Oceans. Most of you probably know if you sail with NCL. Well, it turns out she ended up working there. So Oceans, for the crew members, at least for the entertainment department and all the higher ups that had guest privileges, that was a very popular spot because it wasn't really that packed oftentimes, and we had privileges to go there as long as we remember that the guests come first. So us, whenever we had shows or anything like that, that was a popular spot for us to go to. She would be there, and every time she saw me there, she would come over and try to once again engage in conversation, ask what I was doing later on that night, and I would just try to kind of de-escalate the situation and just tell her I had rehearsals or I had to be up early for another rehearsal or something like that. Now, it got weird because whenever we go to the crew bar, she would continue. She'd have a couple of drinks, she would stare at me, and then one night in particular, she came up and talked to me and asked what I was doing when the crew bar closed. Now, on board the cruise ship, for the crew members, this is kind of like a technique that a lot of crew members would use to, try to hang out with people later on that night, to bed wrestle, all right? They would say that, they don't have any plans after the crew bar and that they don't want to go back to their room because they don't get along with their crewmate. This is something that was very common. Now, I essentially ended up telling her no. She kept on pushing and pushing, and I told her that I have rehearsals in the morning and I can't. Now, you are probably going to ask why I didn't use the girlfriend excuse first. It was simple. For me, it didn't seem like a situation where I had to just bluntly bring that out. But I eventually did, and she backed off for a couple days. So about a week or so went by, and next thing I know, every time I'm coming out of my room for the most part, I see her passing by and she's in the area. I'm pretty sure at that time, unless she got relocated to another part of the ship, she wasn't on my deck, which was deck 7 where I stayed at. I would see her there literally all the time, and it got a little out of hand. It got worse when I was sleeping one night. It was around midnight, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I get a phone call. Turns out it's her, and she's asking what I'm doing. My question was, how in the heck does she have my phone number? Well, here was the situation. I had my friends that I work with and I was doing the shows with on board the ship. I told them about the situation. They laughed it off and joked about it. But I had my friend, let's call him Mike. He was a prankster. He liked to play around just like I did, and he thought it would be funny to give her my cabin number and my room number. The room number that you would call on the phone is literally just your room cabin number, but there were a couple numbers added on to the front and back of it. So she ended up getting my number, and next thing I know, she's calling me just about every day, seeing what I was doing. I eventually ended up just not answering the phone, and then she started leaving me voice messages asking why I was ignoring her and why I wasn't talking to her. So at that point in time, I was just kind of fed up with it, and I had to look at some options. The first option was simple and very cut and dry. Just go to human resources, HR, and report the girl. But this would probably lead to her termination. And on top of that, I was a little frightful because typically in these kind of situations, regardless of how you look at it, usually it's the other way around, and it's the man that's usually getting charged with harassing somebody or doing something wrong. So I didn't think it would be taken serious, and I wasn't in any danger, to be honest with you. I didn't feel that way. So my other option was to just simply talk to her, be very blunt, be very straight up, and tell her that I want her to leave me alone, stop following me, stop calling me, and just give me my space so that I can do what I need to do without worrying about seeing her everywhere I went. So that was the option that I ran with. So I went over, I talked to her, I explained the situation that I have a girlfriend. I'm not interested in her, I'm not attracted to her, and I need her to just leave me alone, or I will seek further guidance and talk to HR if I have to. She looked a little upset. Actually, she was. I saw her kind of get a little teary-eyed, and she was upset asking why and this and that, and she was just really pushy with the situation. But that was the end of it because about a week or two went by, and I didn't hear anything from her. I didn't see her. About a month or so later, I come to find out from my friend Mike that she was transferred to another cruise ship. The reasoning as to why was probably not because of me, because onboard cruise ships, when you're working, these things happen regularly. There's always people signing off and finishing contracts and being transferred to other ships to finish their contract. These things are completely normal. So to round this story up, thankfully things ended in a decent conclusion. There was nothing crazy that ended up happening. Nobody ended up getting fired, which is something that I didn't want. But I also want to point out on the cruise ship, I was a little bit more careful moving forward throughout my contract. Because aside from the popularity factor of working on board cruise ships, when somebody is in an entertainment department or a higher ranking or something of that nature, those people that are in those positions usually have privileges that the other guests do not. I was often talked to a lot by a lot of the waiters and other workers on board the ship that didn't have the privileges I did because I had my own room, I had room service, I had guest privileges, I had every port off. So they would typically try to get in touch with me and become friends with me in order to get certain benefits. Maybe there was something they wanted off of the ship, or they just wanted to take advantage of the fact that I had room service, and if they wanted to get pizza or some Oreo cheesecake at 3 a.m., they could, which I'll be honest with you is a pretty nice perk. So I kind of understand. But moral of the story here is, guys, you got to be careful with who you talk to and what you say to them and how you react, and just pay attention to people's movements, because you never know how somebody is going to react in the future based off of what you tell them or the impression that you give off. And this goes for both a man and a woman. If you feel like somebody is being a little too much, don't report them. Maybe just sit down, talk to them, and get things figured out. If things unfortunately escalate from there, then you have some options that you have to look at. Anyway, guys, I wouldn't say I hope you enjoyed this, but I hope you got something out of this, some type of information or some type of, I guess, entertainment value. But just let me know what you think about all this in the comment section below. Hopefully you guys don't attack me and swear up and down that I did something wrong, mainly because I'm a guy or maybe because I have a big personality. But just let's have a conversation. Thank you so much for watching this installment of Ship Life Stories. I will be doing this at least once a week, and I hope you guys enjoy. Hit that like button on your way out. Make sure you subscribe. And oh yeah, by the way, even though we're talking about cruise stuff, I'm sure some of you out there probably still want to book a cruise. So make sure you check out our travel partner with our YouTube channel, Kimberly Sunset by the Seas. She will make sure you're taken care of and make sure everything goes according to plan as far as your ultimate experience when you're vacationing on board a cruise ship. Link in the description box below. I'll see you guys very soon. Take it easy.